Hi, everybody. So please forgive me. I am super busy with session right now, and I did not have a chance to prepare any visual aids. So I will just be talking to you. Please forgive me. I give you a very 40,000 foot view of the work because there's just too much to go into tonight. But as Jack mentioned, 1310, House Bill 1310 was passed last year and last session and implemented over the summer. We've seen a tremendous drop, 60% drop in police violence since then. And there is quite an onslaught of attempts to roll back a lot of those protections. 1310, as Jack mentioned, limited use of force to probable cause, which is a much narrower definition than reasonable suspicion, which is a very good thing. And so right now, the ACLU of Washington is working very closely with the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability to defend a lot of the work that was passed last session. And just shout out to the WCPA. It is a coalition, very strong coalition of impacted family members, folks who have lost loved ones to police violence. And they do fantastic work. And I see some of you folks are here tonight. It's good to see you. So we're working right now on kind of four police defense bills. The first of which is House Bill 2037, and just super high level view of what 2037 does. It allows officers to use force if people are fleeing during an investigatory interaction, right? So those are often called Terry stops. And it is an expansion of use of force standards from probable cause to reasonable suspicion. We know that this will directly impact disproportionately communities of color, and it will further discriminatory and violent policing. So we also know that people flee from police officers not because they've committed a crime, but because they have historical interactions that have given them an awareness that police are dangerous, right? Particularly within communities of color. So this expansion of the use of force standard is racist. I'm just going to say it, and dangerous, and we're fighting it really with everything we have. It is scheduled to go to executive session on Thursday, so I'll talk a little bit about some other bills, but really this is going to be our priority. Like if you want to kind of the takeaway tonight, 2037, we're still working that. So I'll pause that for a second and come back to it at the end. But House Bill 1788 is another bill that we are fighting. 1788 would, sorry, let me check my notes. I have so many bills floating around in my head right now. It deals with vehicular pursuits, and the current standard around vehicular pursuits requires an imminent threat to persons, and this would expand that latitude to basically, again, reasonable suspicion, right? So we know that vehicular pursuits are extremely dangerous, not only to people in the vehicles, to police officers, but to bystanders. So we are heavily vested in making sure that this latitude is not expanded as well. There's another another bill recently dropped, Senate Senate Bill 5919 dropped last week, and it's kind of we've been lovingly, not so lovingly, referring to it as the Franken Bill, because it combines the worst of 2037 and the worst of 1788 into one bill. And the reason that it happened is the Senate was kind of waiting for something to move in the House. Nothing has been moving in the House because we've been putting up such a strong fight. And that's you. You guys have signed in. I see you against these bills. So the Senate got a little bit angsty and dropped 5919, but it's kind of a placeholder. So it went to hearing today. We'll see what happens, but again, we're still fighting. 2037 is our big fight. Yes, Nadine Woodward did testify on behalf, so did Chief Meidel. They both leaned in very hard on the narrative that all of the policing bills that we won last session are just creating, a crime-ridden Spokane, which we know is not the case. So there is definitely that it's a huge part of all of this defensive work is, a response to this very conservative narrative that, police officers just need full latitude to harm us, or we're all going to be unsafe, which we all know is just insane. So those are the three sort of bills that we're fighting right now. And again, just coming back to 2037, what can we do? Like I said, that bill's going to executive session. Reach out to Chair Goodman, let him know that we really do not agree with, yes, dog whistle, hardcore. We do not agree with this use of force standards. We do not agree that, police officers need probable cause, that they need reasonable suspicion in order to do their jobs. So that's the call to action right now. Just let Chair Goodman know that as 2037 stands, we do not support it. Yes, thank you, Martina. I see you in the chat taking notes for me. I appreciate you. 5480, let's talk a little bit about Senate Bill 5485. That's the traffic stop bill that we are supporting. That would limit officers' ability to make arrests around certain types of traffic stops. And we know that, traffic stops are kind of the gateway for police violence, right? That's often where folks are interacting with cops first. And sorry, can I say cops? I'm peace officers first. And so this traffic stops bill, which is going to a hearing on Thursday at 4, this would disallow officers from, pulling people over for the following actions: failure to keep to the right, improper turns, failure to stop under most circumstances, failure to dim lights, and any other equipment violation as defined as a moving violation, parking violations, driving without a license, vehicle registration violation, failure to maintain proof of motor vehicle insurance, driving while license suspended, safety belt violations, except for like failing to properly restrain children. So you would not be able to be arrested for those things. And the bill is really designed to ultimately limit interaction with police, because we know how much harm can come from that. So those are the 4 policing bills that we're working on right now in conjunction with the WCPA. The first 3 we are in opposition to. The last one we are in support of. I'll pause there really quickly. I don't know if we have time for questions. Jack, someone, can you let me know where we are? I just want to be mindful of time and the rest of the agenda. Okay, I'll scoot on. So moving into sentencing bills really quickly, we are also working, Anthony and I are both working on some sentencing bills. I'll talk about the one I'm working first. It's a youth policy bill, and it is designed to raise the juvenile jurisdiction from age 8, which, my God, when I learned that that was where a child can be sent to juvenile court, my mind was blown. But it raises it from 8 to 13. And there are a lot of reasons that needs to happen. We know that children are just not neurologically capable of making good decisions, right? Like impulsivity coupled with an underdeveloped frontal lobe. Like these kids are just being shunted into a system that will further traumatize them during very crucial developmental years. And we know that this, again, disproportionately impacts communities of color. Yes, that bill is 5122. It is kind of halfway through the process. It made some movement last year, and we're hoping to wrap that up this year. So that is it, I think, for the four or five bills I was going to talk to you. I'll pass it to Anthony to talk to you a little bit about the sentencing bill he's working on.
Hi, thank you, Zara, and thank you everyone for having me and having both of us here into this space. My name is Anthony Blankenship. I'm a coalition organizer with the ACLU as well. I am on the west side, so I live in Tacoma, but very similar size city, right? Something like that, I think. So I wanted to talk about two bills with you all. The first one is solitary confinement, HB 1756. This is to abolish solitary confinement or long-term solitary confinement. What we want to do is actually get Washington's laws in line with the international standard called the Mandela Rule, which says anything after 15 days is considered torture. Solitary confinement in Washington State, I think someone gave a warning, like it's not a healthy place. You are locked in a small cell, sometimes with no windows to the outside. Lights are on 24/7, and some people have been in solitary confinement. I think the average in Washington State is around 222 days or 220 days. And there are people that have been in there for decades. And so these people are people that haven't seen an animal, seen the sky in decades. And what they're going to do is go directly from solitary confinement to our communities. How they show up in the community is, what we want to make sure that they're doing is they're coming back healthy. If you've never come back into a community, you've never seen a computer, you've never had any support other than, you haven't talked to anyone. And I'm sorry, my dog is, he loves to tell his side of the story as well. So currently in Washington, there are between 550 and 700 people. It's HB 1756. Between 550 and around 700 people in solitary confinement at any given time. The Washington Department of Corrections has done studies with the Zara Project, with the MEND, with a lot of other organizations who basically said, like, this is, torture, we need to change this. On the surface, they agree, right? On the surface, they say we want to change this, but at what point? These are studies that have been going on for a decade, and nothing has changed since then. So what we are trying to do is force the Department of Corrections' hand in this situation. And so not only are we trying to reduce it to only 15 days, what we're saying is that you can only do 15 days at a time or 45 days in a calendar year. So they can't just like take you out for one day and then put you right back in. There's a cap on how many days they can actually keep you in a calendar year. So, or a fiscal year actually, is how we're labeling it. As well as how much time is actually spent in a cell. So currently people are in their cell for 23 hours a day. And being out of a cell and what they say is yard is like is basically another room sometimes. Sometimes it'll be sometimes they'll be able to see skies. Most of the time it's inside of a building where they can go in. It's just a little bit bigger where they can walk around. So or getting out of their cell to take a shower. So what we're trying to do is also limit how or how much time out of their cell they can do, which is so they would be only in solitary confinement for 17 hours a day versus 23 hours a day, which is the current standard. In addition to this, this is something that's disproportionately impacted the color, especially the Latinx community specifically has been really targeted for this, as well as the Black community and Native. So really, this is definitely a inside a racial justice issue, and for a lot of people, and for all of the community members on the outside, and for all of you, is it's costly once you get out. Once people go in and they're developing mental health issues, they're developing disabilities because they are not moving, and and so it does increase the cost of healthcare, increase the cost of mental health. Also increases the chances that somebody's going to recidivate because they're not going to have the opportunity to heal or build upon themselves while behind bars. This is something that just one last comment on this bill is this is something that has actually been supported and done in other states, and so there is precedent for this. And I see that we don't have time for questions, so I will totally move on to the next one. But this is something that's been supported in other states, so we know that it's actually possible to do, and we know that it decreases violence and it helps people out, and it's it is good. It's good business to make sure that we're not torturing people in the state of Washington. The other bill that I would like to talk about is HB 1413, which is to eliminate juvenile points in modernized sentencing. That bill specifically targets reducing sentences based on juvenile offenses. And so if someone who has been charged as a youth, when they go and they get charged again and as adult, they're going to do a longer time because they had an offense as a youth. This is something that has disproportionately impacted youth of color. And this is something that what we see as really a racial justice issue. We know that, and is also what we want to make sure is this is something that's also in line with brain science. What we're seeing is that people aren't fully have their brains aren't fully developed until at least 25. And so something that they did as an 8-year-old, as Zara said, is being put on them, later on in life. And so can you imagine, not only have you had this stigma on you since you were 8 years old, and it's probably impacted and probably impacted your ability to get a job, and then when you become an adult and you have less opportunities, and you go back to prison, you're going to you're going to be sentenced basically twice, because you're sentenced, for committing a crime as an adult, and then anything that you did as a youth is going to be tacked on to that as well. So what this bill also does is, we are going to try to make this retroactive. So we want to do is we want to pull back and say, hey, all those people that were sentenced as a youth, how can we, let's go back and take a look at their sentencing. How can we get people out of prison today? How can we change the harm that's been caused due to juvenile points? And so making sure that nobody is left behind. We want to look forward into the future, but we also need to look back and see, the harm that's been caused and undo that today. And yeah, I can totally stick around after the meeting and answer any kind of questions you have on this one. And I appreciate everyone here for the work that you're doing. I do want to say for HB 1413, right now it's still stuck in rules. I know that Representative Rosselli, I hope I'm saying his name right, of the 3rd District, is in Spokane. And so if you can reach out to him and say, hey, please pull this bill, this is important to us, that would be amazing. And I think when we'll send along some one-pagers of both of these bills and all the other ones, as well as hopefully if I can find some language on maybe what to email your representative that's in the Rules Committee, that would be great. So that's all I got. Thank y'all.